everyone. Kaori over here with the lovely Ann Campia.
Hello.
And today we are once again talking about wrestling news that came along the way through this past week. This week, there's quite a bit of wrestling gossip, rumors, news, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not necessarily so much happening on TV itself, but other than that, there's just a lot of interesting things, and it's kind of hard to pick the ones that interest us the most. But if there's anything that interested you, go ahead and comment below and let us know and why. In the meantime, Anne, let's start with the first thing on this list. We have former WWE star claims faction was supposed to return at WrestleMania 36. And what we're talking about is the faction of The Nexus, who came out in I think 2010. It was a faction, a stable of 8 people. We had Wade Barrett as the main person, and then there was Heath Slater, all these people. Ryback was the big one. Daniel Bryan, that's right, Darren Young. Yep. And Darren Young was actually the one that came out in a podcast and said that they were slated to come back out in Florida for WrestleMania 36, but that didn't happen. Now, if you guys remember, the faction was very, very popular at that time. They really made an impression, and Wade Barrett even went on to have a main event with John Cena, and they forced John Cena into the faction as well. So at some point, it basically dissolved. They tried to redo it with the core, which didn't work out. But I thought this was really interesting news because I think a lot of people kind of liked the Nexus. And what did you think?
No, I agree. I mean, I would admittedly say that 2010 with the Nexus, I wasn't full force like watching WWE at that time, but I had heard like they created a lot of what do you call it?
Heat.
Yeah. And I kind of like that, right? Like even just going back to the Attitude Era when you had DX and you had NWO and you had all these huge factions of people that have chosen a side. And the group itself has a lot of the key players who I would say, and I don't know if you agree or not, but a lot of them don't have really interesting storylines right now anyway. So it would have been great to have this surface just to get something going, a longer storyline going for all of these guys. But I was reading the post and it sounds like those were squashed, right? Because of Corona?
Apparently. And I mean, the big thing about this was most of the people in this faction are, like you said, not doing much, or they're already gone.
Yes.
Right? Even Darren Young, who mentioned it, I don't even think he's wrestling with WWE anymore.
I don't think so, actually. Now that
neither is Ryback, neither is Wade Barrett, neither is Heath Slater. Who, so it would have been kind of interesting because Heath Slater did get released briefly after WrestleMania.
Yep.
It would have been interesting if they did go with this and seeing all these superstars that we haven't seen in almost 5 to 10 years reunite as a faction that we haven't seen in almost 10 years would have been really interesting. And I wonder what the effect of seeing them, if we were at Tampa and we were in the stadium or at the stadium and we saw this faction come out, what would we make of it?
Oh my God. Would you have went nuts or what?
I think I might have went nuts. Yeah. Not necessarily because they were the greatest, but because it's just a lot of, it brings you back to that time period.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was some big news, and I wonder what it would have turned out to look like.
I'm looking at old photos of them, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
It's crazy. Look at all those people.
Yeah.
And now, where have they gone?
I know.
It's like a band of mid-card, you know?
I know. That's too bad. Yeah. I mean, and how many of them were how far out was it when the idea got scrapped, if it was super close to WrestleMania and all of them were physically getting ready to come back and then COVID happens, but.
Yeah. And in this article also, it does say, since this video has surfaced online, the video talking about Darren Young talking about being on, coming back, some fans are pointing back to a report by WrestleVotes earlier this month that noted how WWE officials had a big storyline that was supposed to play out over this spring and summer. So that makes me wonder if that storyline had to do with the Nexus.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that would have been cool, actually, to be honest with you.
Things that, at this point in the year, you're just like, okay, what would have been?
Right.
Stupid coronavirus.
This year has been tremendously
horrible.
trying. But I hope it's better for you guys than it has been for me. Okay, next one. Brock Lesnar might be the reason why Matt Riddle went on to SmackDown. This debuted this past week over Raw. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard that Riddle officially made his move from NXT to SmackDown, which is awesome for him. It's funny because Anne and I really liked Riddle, or really like present tense Riddle. And every time he came out on NXT, I was like, yeah, he's cool. But it never like hit me that he was a main star, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So it does come out kind of a shock to me that he's moving on up to SmackDown, but not because since the coronavirus, they've been using him a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So it makes me think, interesting. I mean, he has this talent, he has the skills, but is it the coronavirus being used to his advantage? Not like the virus itself, obviously, but the time that's got him to move up. Because I just think he's shown as an elevated mid-carder, maybe, competitor for a championship belt. And I think he had one for a while, but just... It didn't resonate with him that he was like a top star at NXT is what I'm saying.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And it's just a vibe that I get as a fan watching him every week that he's so great in NXT.
Yeah.
That feels like the right home for him.
It does.
And it's the same feeling I had with Ricochet. Seeing him move to main card was a little odd to me as a fan. Street Profits is another one where I think I think they made sense to go to main card, but it just depends. Like, I think there's certain people, like you're saying, that they just fit well where they're at. Like, I am afraid he might get buried as he goes into SmackDown. I'm worried that it was too soon because once the roster starts filling up again, what's it going to look like for him? Is my fear, yeah.
right?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I have to believe coronavirus, everything that's happening. They have to mix some of the roster up because it's so limited at this point. And trying to move people that they think maybe are more interesting to some of the shows that are getting higher ratings. I mean, we'll have to see, but I never thought Riddle to be.
Right. So when in the headlines, when it said top star, I'm like, top star?
I mean, and he just had this really good match with Timothy Thatcher. I was telling you about it, right?
Yeah.
That NXT hasn't gone, at least I don't think they've gone here yet, where they built this giant like cage structure that was really cool. Not a Hell in a Cell, perhaps, but it was something else. Like, but they had such a good match. Thatcher's teeth like fell out in the beginning of the match. It was just like a very like ECW type feeling match that. And then hearing the news after that they were moving Riddle up, I was like, oh, wait, but he just had this really cool match. Like, keep him where he's at right now.
I'm with you. It just felt like he just still had a lot to do at NXT. It didn't... A lot of times you feel like, okay, when are they going to move up? When are they going to move up? When are they going to move up? Because you feel like they're ready and they really don't have much left at the developmental, but... Yeah. I don't feel that way with Riddle. I mean, I could be definitely wrong. Alexa Bliss, she came out of nowhere when she moved on to SmackDown.
That's true.
So anything's possible, right?
Right.
And so they might have something for him. Well, they do, but let's see how it works.
Yeah. What do you think the beef is going to be? Any theories, or do you know anything?
No. Do you?
No.
Yeah.
I guess from a like physical standpoint, who makes sense, right? I mean, I feel like
Sheamus.
But even Sheamus, I feel like is going to dwarf him for some reason.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of who else.
That's hard. Who's on SmackDown right now? We'll come back.
No, Seth is in Raw. Okay, we'll go back to this.
Seth would have been a good.
Yeah, it would have been decent.
Yeah, that's too bad.
How about what's his our boy Otis?
I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe Ziggler or somebody like that.
Ziggler.
Yeah. I don't know about Otis because Otis got his own beef going on right
maybe
now.
Miz,
that makes sense.
Miz,
Right.
John Morrison.
Yep. All of that kind of like, they have kind of the same
Right.
feel. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so the next we are going to talk about this report. Now, this is obviously not conclusive, but Jerry Lawler is being permanently replaced on Raw commentary team by none other than Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe has been on the Raw commentary recently because he has an injury, but he has been getting rave reviews and he's been doing really, really well at it. And if this is true, I'm okay with it.
Same.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I love Samoa
Joe. Such a great introduction to that commentary team.
Yeah, really, really. And it's nice to see that he can work either in the ring or outside of the ring. And he has so much wrestling knowledge that it doesn't hurt for him to have that experience in the ring to use it in commentary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I love Jerry the King Lawler. He's obviously a legend, but yeah, I prefer to hear the technicality of like what's going on. It's very much the same way I lean when you get a MMA, like somebody who's really well versed in MMA, like a Daniel Cormier who's doing announcing for UFC. Like I like to hear the technical like aspect of it, like this is this move or this is what this is doing. Like so, I think Samoa Joe brings that to the table too. More so than Jerry the King Lawler would. Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you just kind of feel that time has kind of passed in terms of being hip with it or whatever. And I'm not saying Jerry Lawler isn't, but a lot of times he's kind of there because he's a legend, really.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's kind of how I feel about Jim Ross sometimes.
Right.
I really hate to say that, but
nope, I hear you.
Yeah, like if you're like, oh, but I don't understand what he's saying, but I understand why he's there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if this is true, I'm sure Jerry Lawler is going to be okay. And I'm sure he's going to make a comeback.
Yeah.
And good for Samoa Joe. I think sometimes after a while, wrestling is going to be taxing on your body. Mm-hmm. And if you have to do announcing instead, that is definitely not a bad choice. Announcing probably has a longer longevity, right?
For sure.
So it's safer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So next we have CM Punk, who kind of makes fun of Jeff Hardy's comical quote, well, not quote, comical, or particularly like some people wouldn't say comical. What's the word?
Oh,
angle. Yeah. Angle on SmackDown. Mm-hmm. When WWE decided to kind of create a storyline mocking Jeff Hardy's real life substance abuse problem. Now I didn't watch it. Anne watched it.
Yeah.
So she can probably tell you better. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I can see why some people would be bothered by the storyline just knowing Jeff Hardy's real life issues with substance abuse. But the actual, I get why CM Punk would have made fun of it. I don't know what to say except it was another one of those things that I'm glad WWE is trying to like go balls to the wall with like storylines and try different cinematic takes on some of the storylines. But this one was just a little silly. Like you have Elias is on the ground. You have Braun Strowman who's giving a recounting of what he saw because apparently he was in the parking lot when the person drove through with their vehicle. Then you have the cops, I'm doing quotes because they felt like mall cops. And one of them was like going through the rental car trying to figure out who it was. And then he finds the rental car agreement and he's like, Jeff Hardy, is there a Jeff Hardy here? We're looking for Jeff Hardy. And I'm like, seriously right now? This is so cheesy. So they end up finding him like, I don't know, in one of the like units, like still in the relative area. It's fine. Like let's see what they're gonna do with it. I just think it's really silly. So I don't blame CM Punk for kind of mocking it and making fun of it just because it was pretty funny.
I mean, we joke about a lot of angles and storylines quite frequently. I mean, they're super cheesy. Let's face it. It's not like the 80s where everything felt real and scary. Right. It's a very comic strip Sunday, or it's just very different. The action's the same ish, and also I was reading it in this article as well that it might be that Jeff Hardy, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, Anne, Jeff Hardy was framed, So Jeff Hardy might have to like defend himself, and it might actually be someone like Sheamus who actually did it.
I mean, who knows, right? They can take this anywhere, or they can just say it was him. When they arrested him, quote unquote, they were like, oh, his breath smells like what the car inside the car smells like. And his name is on this rental agreement. And I'm like, oh my God.
So cheese.
But sure, maybe Braun or somebody. Braun was the only one that seemed to be in the parking lot at the time when it happened. And Elias was on the ground. So who knows?
And
maybe.
Elias got hit, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, not funny, but yeah.
But yeah, you know what I mean. Like, because it's fake. It's kind of funny.
Okay, let's take a break from WWE because, well, not really, because Jericho was in the WWE and he left the WWE to go to AEW and start with Cody Rhodes and others, AEW. Jericho currently has a angle or storyline against Mike Tyson. They showed up, was it on Double or Nothing or the last AEW show?
Yeah, so Tyson was on Double or Nothing, but then his little faction, his group came out on the last AEW show.
Okay, yeah. So I saw that. I wasn't sure where that clip came from. Obviously, something is developing between Mike Tyson and Chris Jericho. It made a lot of news. It's supposed to be a big deal. Mike Tyson might be coming back to fight for charity at some point, irrespective of wrestling world. But yeah, I saw them kind of arguing at each other. Jericho's wonderful on the mic. Mike Tyson is horrible. Just horrible. So it's so hard to see him kind of like, come at me. And it's like, if you didn't know this guy was a fighter, if you didn't know what he looked like, if you didn't see the people next to him, you'd be like, this guy's a pussy, you know?
Yeah.
But it's it's almost to the point where it's kind of comedy between these two.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and what they're doing is they're basically tying in Chris Jericho and Mike Tyson's beef from way back when. And we know that Mike Tyson has had interest in wrestling in the past. He was in a WrestleMania match eons ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think of this whole thing going on?
But let's start with, his voice, it's always been that way though. I don't even know what to say about Iron Mike Tyson except that, you know, the voice doesn't match the body, doesn't match the boxing skill.
But it's not even just the voice, yes.
And he can't even speak.
And he's like kind of smirking the whole time, like trying not to laugh at Jericho, like throwing shade at him. There
was a clip. It was a very, very quick clip from Double or Nothing where they cut to Tyson and he is, I kid you not, eyes closed, looked like he was nodding off during the match.
Oh my God.
And so in terms of judging like his or measuring his level of interest in maybe the actual storyline that's happening with Jericho, he probably doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
he's getting paid, whatever. Right. But I am down for the group that he's assembled because he's got some of the best MMA fighters within his group. I just couldn't believe Henry Cejudo, who just retired from MMA like 2 weeks ago. It was like retired like with like an undefeated streak. Like here he is showing up on AEW. Then you have Rashad Evans, who was also former champion in UFC. And then you also have Vitor Belfort, who fought for a championship. I don't know if he held a belt, but like some really high caliber MMA people showing up in his group. And I was telling you off podcast that if this was a real fight, that Jericho wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah, right.
Like Cejudo alone could take out his whole group, but it is funny that once you kind of enter any type of wrestling, whether it's AEW or WWE world, like everything becomes equal. We always talk about that size variation, even when it comes to like women's fights where you have Tamina versus like Alexa Bliss, and you're like, come on, in real life this wouldn't even like be a question, but as soon as they come in the ring, you're like, oh shit, this is going to be good. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. I just hope they don't let Jericho win. I actually am on the Tyson side of this fight. Yeah,
you're right. I don't think Jericho should win. And I haven't really even... Oh.
Sorry,
in case
y'all.
You guys are wondering,
curfew time.
We're on curfew time, by the way, in Los Angeles, in case you heard that.
Yeah.
A lot of things happening. Like we said earlier, and in this podcast. 2020 has just been unreal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to also point out, and Anne might throw me under the bus for this, but when we were talking off podcast, how she said the promotion pictures.
Yes. No, I don't know. Go ahead. Throw me under the bus.
She said that the Chris Jericho pictures don't really match what Chris Jericho of today.
I'm so horrible. I should not have said that, but it's also true. Like, come on. I would say the same thing about myself. You always want to put your best photo up on social media. Like, do I look like my profile picture right now? No.
Yeah. It's just pretty funny.
It is funny.
It's pretty funny. Okay, so then next we're going to talk about AW kind of. We're talking about Kurt Angle, and there's a rumor that Vince McMahon, he's been utilizing Kurt Angle a lot recently, and apparently he wants to rehire Kurt Angle even though he fired or / let him go because he's afraid of losing him to AEW. Now, if this is a real story, it feels kind of a lot really petty to me. What do you think, Anne?
Yeah, I agree. But I'm also not surprised. Are you surprised by that type of move?
No, but it demoralizes me as a wrestling fan. Like, why do I watch this still? But I'll still watch it.
Yeah, I know. That's the other piece of this whole.
That's the part like,
Every time we watch a show that we're just disappointed in, both you and I look at each other like, but yeah, here we are, still watching it 2 hours later.
Yeah, it's like,
oh,
there
sorry,
it is
guys.
again. It's like when you know your kids are bad, but you'll still say, I'll still watch you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. And I also don't know how Kurt Angle feels about it, right? Like, if you understand why you were brought back, is that okay with you? Like, I don't know. Maybe he's also like, this is just the way Vince is. So whatever. Who knows? Who knows everything behind it?
Who knows? Like, it's Kurt Angle's choice too. He might want something fresh and new.
Yeah.
If he has an offer at AEW, or he might want to stick with Vince, but does he feel comfortable trusting Vince if that is his motivation?
Mm-hmm.
So who knows, Best of luck to you, Kurt Angle.
I know. I mean, he was there. He was back. So it was nice to see him back on WWE. But
yeah, introducing Riddle. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
So who knows what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
All right, next is a WWE Executive Vice President, a.k.a. Triple H, reveals that he wants to bring Daniel Cormier to the WWE. He expresses a strong interest in him. What do you think of this rumor, Anne?
Not surprised. I think that Cormier has time and time again expressed his love for the WWE. We always see some of the WWE superstars in the arena when we could have fans at the UFC fights. So there's just this kind of camaraderie and love between both of the organizations. And DC has always said he would fight in the WWE. Like, he's put it out there. He loves it. So, and he's got a great personality. If you haven't heard of DC, or if you haven't seen him commentate or fight, like, he's just like this, he's like Keith Lee. He's got that energy too.
I like that.
He's big, but he's agile. He's a former I think he's Olympic wrestler, but he just brings a lot of skills to the table. He's held the belt heavyweight championship for how many times? So it would be cool to see that crossover. I'm not surprised that they're tapping him, and I am also not surprised that he would come and do something. It's nice to see though that, it's not one of those, like you were just talking about with Kurt Angle. Oh, we want to keep him because we don't want anyone else to take him. In this instance, like, the WWE is very much open to having that partnership with Dana White and the UFC.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're top. WWE is very smart when it comes to making bonds and tying loose ends and bringing things together. How old is Daniel Cormier? Because I'm reading in this article that he might be too old to do in-ring stuff, but they're thinking commentary. But in my mind, it's like never say never.
I know. I mean, I think the training for UFC and WWE is a little bit different. So, but I wouldn't put it past Daniel Cormier. He's still fighting in the UFC. I think he's probably around the same age as Brock, I would say, and Brock is still fighting. So why not? I think he could totally do it. Unless they're asking him to do high flying, Rey Mysterio stuff, which clearly he's not going to be able to do that.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of crossover when it comes to MMA or UFC anyway, and I'm not familiar with it, but every time you see someone coming up from that arena, that side, you're like, oh, it's this person or this person. So it wouldn't surprise me, and I'm sure it would, if history shows any truth, it would definitely show some heat. Criticism, but people love criticism, don't they?
Yeah.
I also just read, and I'm just going to add this, Conor McGregor versus Vince McMahon is Triple H's dream matchup. I just had to say that because that's pretty funny.
I love that you added that on. Wow. Who would you pick in that fight? What kind of versus in what? Like, are they like talking trash? Are they actually fighting each other? What's the actual?
Let's see. It says, in a recent interview with TMZ, Triple H said he would like to book a match between McGregor and the chairman of the WWE, Vince McMahon. He says, I think that Conor McGregor versus Vince McMahon with that $1 billion walk on the line, I mean, I think that's a match made in heaven.
Oh my God.
He doesn't mention what type of match it would be. But
a pie eating contest.
that does kind of say he might be interested in bringing Conor as well.
Conor is also very much available. He's one of those unpredictable people. He's gone through a lot in his career, very controversial. He would bring a lot of, as you put it, heat or attention to the WWE if he were to come in, for sure. I think bigger than Mike Tyson coming into AEW. Conor coming to
it's going to be huge.
WWE would be nuts.
He's just quite the controversial guy, period.
Yeah.
People love that stuff.
Yeah.
They eat that up. So for him to be in WWE, people will be following him closely. I guarantee they would add more viewers to if they need more, but you know.
I just like that Triple H is saying his father-in-law should be the one. Like, it's not
That's what I think is hilarious.
It's not even Shane.
It's like your father-in-law's like 80, you know, it's fine.
Is he trying to like murder the guy, like without like actually murdering?
Like what just do you have a vendetta against him? You know?
Oh my God, can you imagine?
It's so funny. So funny. Any other things that you want to mention, Anne, before we wrap up?
I would just say, like we said last week, everyone be kind to each other. It's a crazy, crazy time.
Yeah.
2020 is just crazy. And thankfully, you know, we have wrestling. We have the funny, like storylines. We have the rumor mill to talk about. So gotta just thank Kaori for, you know, putting this podcast together and allowing me to co-host it with him.
I'm so glad. I would have no one else to do this with on a weekly basis. And I'm really thankful for Anne, and I'm thankful for everyone that is listening to this podcast. It kind of keeps us going. And I'm so grateful that during this time, we are at least open to the internet. So we are not social distancing too far away from each other, right? Just be kind to each other is all I ask. Yeah. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll catch you next week when we talk more about wrestling. In the meantime, you can follow me at KAORIOUS. You can follow Anne and I at Team Amasian. And Anne, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Anne Campia.
Yep, that's right. And don't forget to comment below. Let us know what are some of your favorite newsworthy wrestling article. I can't speak. Wrestling headlines.
Yeah,
there was a lot going on this
week.
I'm
sure we missed a lot.
We missed a lot, but it's okay. I'm sure we'll get to it. I'm sure they'll all tie in some way or another, and I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about this coming year. Stay safe, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
See ya.